Okay, I'm testing Canvo and I think I'm bouncing it a little. I don't have the camera on a proper base, so excuse any bouncy bounce. Now, let's review and jump into the topics from the LinkedIn Live audio event 3. We're still talking about social media marketing, and Jim Fuhs from Fuhsion Marketing and Dealcasters Live and Relatable came in and added to the discussion. And I do have half of it still with the conversation between Jim and I. And I think other audience people even came in the second half. So I'm going to review what you missed in the first half and try to remember. I should have probably recorded closer to when we just talked to remember what Jim and I discussed, but it was such a great conversation. He's such a great guy. So let me just go back and let you in on where we're at, where we now are at. So over the last 2 weeks of chats and live audio episodes, we've looked at the chaotic world of social media marketing, noting the head spinning speed of change and evolution in not only the platforms, but also in our culture as well. We contemplated and addressed some of the most frustrating and important struggles for business and social media managers in this new reality, concluding that there's a huge need to rethink, reevaluate, and redo our social media marketing tactics and strategies going forward. So I think we've come to this conclusion. It's time to shake things up and look at everything we do in social differently. So while contemplating and researching deeper because of this crucial debate on all these different areas, we have some brainstorming for fresh and new ideas to do for social marketing. So in the second show, while we're doing that deeper digging on an individual basis, we looked at how we can start working with new ideas at a top of funnel level with social marketing. And Jamie Shine was my guest on week 2. Week 1, when we first brought up a lot of the topics and we're shaking it up, that was with Joey Garrity. And so for creating top of the funnel, we thought you can get that into that immediately while you're taking that longer and slower look at your new marketing methods and your new social strategies. We have to overcome challenges from all sides. We have platforms, owners, social climate, tech evolution, all of it coming at us. So we can shine. We need to make these changes in spite of all this so we can shine and gain attraction, attention, and awareness in unique and scroll stopping ways. So this week, it's time to roll up your sleeves and dig into how you get new strategic thinking on track through things like that research with reviewing and auditing and brainstorming for discovery and insights to build the framework for your new and improved social media marketing management plan, and to uncover exactly what factors to weigh and what to ignore for breakthrough thinking and ideas to fuel your social media for real business results. So if you're ready to go, let's jump in. So Jim Fuhs of Fuhsion Marketing and Dealcasters, as I said, which he does with Chris Stone, popped in and joined the discussion early into the event. And I have to say, it was a very intensely intriguing and informative conversation. But if you missed the live show, this episode is only going to give you the second half of our talk. So I'm going to try to remember how we arrived at that point and quickly review some of what Jim and I chatted about. But I'm a jughead, and I should have probably recorded this sooner when things were immediate and fresh. But still, I think it went something like this. And by the way, Jim is coming back as to guest co-host next week to review some highlights and to answer some viewer questions from that live show. So I love that Jim's input included his viewpoints on some of the topics from the premiere episode with Joey, and his assessment on several topics led to discussions around how interactions on social media are changing, how standing out is harder, and how each platform has their own agendas, and much more. Jim shared how he made his LinkedIn profile image interactive using a new app called Relatable that allows him to bring the conversation directly to him with a customized engagement strategy. The importance of that two-way and personalized conversation he's able to gain by doing this is so invaluable, and it gives a leg up for building community. So we talked a little bit about how businesses are building communities around their brands with social media, and how embracing UGC, or user generated content, is an integral part of their marketing strategy. But still, Jim explains how those one-on-one engagements directly with people are the most experiential way that you can attract and engage human to human to create a strong connection at every touch point. So, notably, people now expect to interact with companies and are rather impatient to get responses for any social interaction. This on the spot customer care through careful social listening and problem solving reinforce Brooke Sellas' thinking, some of the concepts that we discussed in previous episodes. By the way, you can find all the episodes on Spotify or your favorite podcast platforms under The Marketing Mirror, or on my YouTube channel, which famously just hit 103 subs. Woo! Woo, woo. Besides the important points Jim made for engaging with people, acknowledging them on social and offering a personalized or customer experience opportunity with you, he also agreed that platforms are making it harder to get noticed. Therefore, they demand challenges for proper content creation, like per channel or platform. So we can't just go with standard repurposing across platforms anymore. Instead, we need to consider things like platform specific content, audience needs, desires, habits, and mixed content types, all delivered with intentional and meaningful direction and in tandem with your business goals. And we need to shake things up and get more creative as an important factor, especially in the AI world. Further, and this leads into the second live recorded chat, there's a cultural shift in how, when, why, and how people use and are on their social platforms. So people's expectations have shifted in a way that they're, as Joey put it, their social platforms are part of their skin. You know, they're using them randomly all through the day and everywhere they go. They're checking in on social. And so we need to think about, when people come to these different platforms, what is their intent? Anyway, the thing that Jim was trying to point out that is that you may be wasting your time if you're putting a lot of attention in a platform that you're not getting results from. And it may be because the people going to that platform are going for a reason other than business. And I think I think that's where we're at. I think this second half of the tape, he jumps into Facebook as one of the other situations where it may or may not fit your platform. So it's interesting how these platforms work in different ways for different people, for different businesses. But as a business content creator, you have to think about not only what you're good at, but you have to think about where your audience is hanging out. You have to think about what format that you're going to make your main platform and where that belongs. And so there's a lot of factors going into it. So I'll let the conversation go as it did last week with Jim. And again, we were talking user intent being a factor for what platforms you may want to produce on. Because if you're producing for a platform where no one's coming to buy and your intention is to get buyers, it might be a bad fit. So thanks for listening so far, and I appreciate everyone who's been showing up for the live audio events. Each and every one of you are so important, and we want to hear your voices. So every Wednesday, 2:00, LinkedIn Live audio. Thank you, and here comes Jim to finish this episode.
Page, because I just I don't think, and I talked about this yesterday, I don't go to Facebook looking for business or, businesses to help me. I'm going to Google, I'm going to YouTube. I may be looking on LinkedIn because I maybe know I connected with someone that's in that industry. What is your thoughts on some of that?
I think that's exactly one of the points that I've been trying to make about user intent. So when people go to TikTok, for example, in my view, they're not going to TikTok to purchase something. I mean, now they're trying to push it as a shopping platform, and it is taking off to that demographic in that way. But originally, it was strictly entertainment. So you have to, I think about the intent of the viewer, the audience, or the platform demographic. You have to think about, why are they going there? On Pinterest, people are going to shop. They're making wish lists to build, to decorate their house or build a garden or whatever. That's a shoppable avenue and they were one of the first to offer e-commerce because they do, that's why people are going there. So on Facebook, like you said, I think the intent is, and Facebook wants it to be about relationships and family. They don't want you to be a content person on Facebook on your personal profile. But as I mentioned earlier in one of the weeks, I don't do personal. I'm just seriously, who I am is all business. That's what I do. I love. I've always been. I'm really about business. It's what I love. I'm passionate about it, and that's what I share. But that's probably the wrong place to do it. We mentioned last week, or maybe the first week, Ann Handley, I just saw her on an interview talking about social media marketing, and she does exactly what you said. Her Instagram is strictly fun and games, no business. One of the things she says she likes about that is it gives her a creative outlet to feel good about social media. So it doesn't drag you down that it's, just like, oh my gosh, social media. Like Joey said, people that she talks to actually hate social media. And that's no way to go about it, even as a business. If you can't feel good about it and feel that it has good return for you and that you like it and that you're meeting people and that you're making connections that you get to collaborate with, like I have with Lisa and Gail and Jamie and you right now, this is why it's important. Not, if you can't have that attitude of, I like this, and I liked how Joey also called it like visiting a coffee shop. She looks at like stopping it at her different platforms, at like going table to table and visiting friends. And I like how she pointed out that you have control. You can hang out there, or you can, and linger, or you can just hop in and out and go grocery shopping or go on to your next thing. So I think that as marketers and as business people, we need to stop and think about, like, maybe I do need to turn my Facebook personal thing into personal stuff. And I think that what you're doing is you're showing even your customers who see those accounts a different side of you. And it's something I personally am probably lacking because I'm so business-like, but I think that you have pointed out what people forget. Why are people on there? If they're looking for help for services, they're probably coming to, like you said, LinkedIn, something like that, more so than some of the other platforms. One of the things with Instagram, maybe you can help me. I only work on Instagram for clients. I don't have an account there. But on Instagram, it seems like it's harder to have a two-way conversation compared to other platforms. Is that feel correct to you?
I think so. And I know Jeff Dwoskin, I don't know if you've had a chance to meet him. Him and his wife, they've started this, it's a tool called Social Stampede. And what it'll let you do is if someone comments with like a keyword that you tell them in that post, it'll actually send them a DM that will allow kind of that further interaction, because I think otherwise it's extremely difficult to get conversations started on Instagram. It's funny because there's all these people like, when StreamYard, as an example, another platform started to allow you to go live on there, it's kind of like, but I don't go to Instagram to sit there and watch long live videos. Right? I'm going to do that on YouTube. I'm going to do that on LinkedIn. So I think it goes back to what you talk about, and if you want to call it user intent. what does a user that go to Instagram plan to do? They don't plan to go listen, because be like, oh, I'll start doing my podcast on Instagram in vertical format. I'm not going to do that because you're asking me to change a behavior that I've already established, and I'm not going to see the benefit in going to Instagram and doing this. I think Instagram has probably been more one of those, people do the conversations in the direct messaging aspect of it has been my thought, but and I don't really use it as much as maybe I should either. I mean, we post a lot of content on our Dealcasters Instagram, but that's more to show people, products or showcase, clips out of some of our longer interviews to, kind of get people to go watch the longer version somewhere else, not on Instagram.
Well, it's interesting too, like the mic that you mentioned earlier. Sure, yeah. M4, I thought I saw you guys promoting it. I didn't know it wasn't out yet, but I thought, boy, I never heard of that one. That's a new one. But I didn't even know that you were promoting it ahead. You guys were like ahead of the train because you got the demo. I love that. That's another way that people can think about using their social media, because when you're doing, let's call it user-generated content, whether it's sponsored or not, whether you have a relationship with that company or not, that's another way that you're introducing your audience to new things. And so that's also, it adds to your credibility, your trust, and those kind of things. And it's going to help you, with business also. You can only spread yourself so thin. You have to really concentrate on where do you think you're going to do the best for yourself as a business and for the people you serve. Like, where are those people really hanging out? I don't, since I'm not on Instagram, I certainly don't have an audience there yet. And, do I have enough that I'm working with now that I need to build that other audience? Some people, like Joey would say, you should be seen in all places, period. But I find that I can't spread myself that thin. Also, you mentioned, was it Substack? I know Ann Smarty's been talking about Reddit a lot as a marketing platform, which really kind of struck me because I didn't think of Reddit as a marketing platform. But what I know is that they're getting some kind of preference in being picked up by search. And that's one of the reasons I think people are flocking that way. But to me, that's more where I'm spreading myself thin instead of keeping a focus on what are going to be my core platforms. And another topic that I have coming up is the question of, I've been asking this for a good year or so now, but I think that the answer is changing about how does YouTube fit into your content strategy, and is it a social media platform, and how can you utilize it? And as a writer, like I said, I'm doing audio because the last thing I want to do is be on camera. However, I like being the magic behind the curtain. However, I feel there's no choice but to venture into there if you want to be seen or heard at all in social. And like you said, Jim, it adds the humanness to you so much more when you're 3D. You know what I mean?
Right. And, it's interesting, too, about YouTube is you do have, if you want to call it several faceless channels that are becoming successful. So I don't know, maybe there's something there that you could do in regards to that, Sue Ann. But I also think, because I thought what I liked about your conversation with Joey last week was that I was doing other stuff, but I knew that, okay, I can just listen to this, right? Even though it was on YouTube, it's like I'll listen to the conversation. It brought up some great points. I was able to go in there and I know you responded to my comments. So I thought that was a good feature. I think what...
Yeah, and also it's on my Spotify. Like, I'm repurposing this in every way because my Spotify Megaphone podcast also, I felt like I wasn't getting as much up on my podcast as I wanted to do in terms of content, because for me, doing the video and editing and learning and trying to learn like how to work with YouTube and the algorithm, and that's a whole nother study, right? So in that case, that's like this year is the first year that YouTube has been part of my content strategy. So this is the first year I'm working it, but I still feel like I'm doing less content that I'd like to do and talking about less than I'd like to share because of the I don't know what you would call it. I guess the constraint of my ability for
but I
video.
think, and this is where I think we have to think differently about social media. It's not always so much about post all the time. It's really more about engagement that is meaningful. I mean, you know so much about copywriting and all this other stuff, and so you can even. And I did a video on Monday on my LinkedIn, and it's also on YouTube, about how you can create like custom search on LinkedIn, so you can make sure you're seeing specific people's content with a bookmark. And so you could go in there and it's like, okay, these people posted this the last 24 hours, and then you can go in and engage with them, right? That's going to build that relationship. They may not have time to go check out your content right now. And I think that's where we get overwhelmed sometimes because, like, well, I don't know whose content I should do. But I think going back to what you're talking about with YouTube, I've become more, I guess you could say, purposeful with YouTube because I do see that, okay, people are, even with, now we'll call them, AI is creating answer engines like Perplexity, not search engines like Google. How are we going out there and engaging? How are people finding us outside of the social platforms? And that's where YouTube really is still a search engine. Google never seems to quite be able to get social right. The demise of Google Plus, which is, I met a lot of people through that several years ago, and and even they just did away with Google Podcast, but they're having podcasts on YouTube. So it's really fascinating.
I heard I heard Ann Smarty say this. Only Google can destroy Google.
Yes.
And I thought that was the funniest thing. But she has a point. But the other point is how fast is search changing? Because we definitely want to be the answer on Perplexity or on GPT. Like when they're asking a question about social or content marketing or copywriting or the things, web copy, content strategy, the things we cover, we want to come up on those. How do we get in those searches? But interestingly, SparkToro, the Moz old guy Rand at SparkToro, just did, I think you shared it. It was a study about like the actual numbers and how far ahead on SEO and search Google is compared to anything else. It's going to take light years or really, I mean, we think it's disruptive now. It's not even close to budging them for their lead. They're that far ahead. But the people that need to be thinking of it and are thinking of it are people like us who are in the industry. We're thinking ahead of the trend, I think. But it is good to start thinking about and planning for if you want to be captured in those searches and be seen in those things. And it's not that easy to do. Like, it's not as easy as it used to be to get followers. It's not easy to get subscribers on YouTube at all because there's so much content overload and it's hard to be unique. You don't want to be a sound chamber, an echo chamber. You need to get that freak flag, I guess you want to call it, something you have to do to be different. And I really think it's not so much being different as being engaging and engaging with people, joining the conversation like Jim's saying.
Yeah, I think, that's our biggest challenge, because I've worked with some clients in the past and I have, my friend Chris Stone has some the same way. Those like, well, how are you getting all this engagement on LinkedIn? They're, these are people that, speak on stages for money. And it's like, you have to engage, people are not going to sit there and just automatically comment on your post. You need to, go and have an actual conversation, right? Because it's almost like, well, how come no one's commenting on my stuff? Do you ever comment on theirs?
You know,
You know,
there's some
there's
people I've
definitely
shared
some.
for 10 years. I'm waiting for one time for them to like or share or talk to me at all. But I don't care because if they're good enough, I'm still going to be on them, whether they notice
Right.
me or not. But I would love, I think it is a two-way. I think, look, even if you're a big wig, which many people I like are, I think they should still acknowledge you. I felt like that's one of the places where, like you said, some of these big clients are so big they're too big for their britches. They forget to acknowledge the little people, the people who are listening and paying attention and sharing their information with others. I'm always sharing other people's, I'm always referencing other people that I admire and using their information to infuse into my information because it's, you know, the latest stuff. I'm keeping up on it. These are my colleagues and whatever. But maybe I'm not a colleague. You know what I mean? The way that some people interact. But I think if you want to build a community, which I think is a huge part of social right now, is having a community. I think that you have to, you know, be aware of other people. And we talked about really a little bit deeper last week, Jim, which you didn't catch that episode yet because it's not on YouTube. I was working on it last night, Jamie, when Jamie's the co-host. And we talked about infusing commenting or optimizing commenting, making use of commenting in a new and different way. And that way would be to be more intentional. So that you're not just like my commenting, I'm very polite. And I think I have a whole thing around a thank you marketing campaign because when you say thank you enough, people notice that you're there and they eventually have to acknowledge you. You know, you said thank you to them so many times that they notice you. Thank you marketing works, in my opinion. That's how I started. And I was a little shy about interacting, but I could at least be polite when I started. But now I'm thinking deeper. And I watched this webinar, and this guy was so good. And he was saying that, you know, don't just comment like lightly like that, have a nice weekend and thank you, which is what I often do, but talk in a deeper way, not so much for the person you're commenting to, but for that new audience that is their connections that are going to see it and that may notice you, and you may gain new reach or new connections because guess what? You just said something really smart, or you gave some information that shows you know what you're talking about, or your comment gave an example of how it worked for you with a client. Oh, you must know what you're doing. You must be pretty good at that because you're kind of soft selling yourself in the way that you intentionally comment was his idea. And he said, and it's not just what you comment, it's with whom you comment. So you need to target your commenting to people that you want to have relationships with. I thought that was super smart.
Yeah, I think that is. I think that's a very very valuable insight, and I think yeah, because it is that thing of, I mean, I wish some of these other folks would jump on stage with us, but it is great to get to know people by listening, and I think that's also the power of using this medium within social of LinkedIn audio, is that you start to learn from people and hear from them in ways you really, it's hard to do any other way, right? And this is a conversation, right? So this is not us, just listening to you, or and the folks here, if they really wanted to say something, they can jump into the conversation. I think that is powerful. I mean, it's almost like we're all in the same room, and I think
I
that's
think it's
sometimes
fun.
I think what the platforms are missing.
I think that's fun. And you know what else too? I love that like in many cases, like there's opposing ideas, which I love. I've presented when I'm teaching about blogging and blog content strategy. I had how to bling your blog and feed that hog was a course that I ran before. It was on AppSumo for a while and whatever. But one of the things about that was that, first of all, I wanted people to interact in the course and be building their own thing. Like part of being part of it isn't just about like learning the stuff. It's about like, well, what are you doing with it, and how like each thing we talk about becomes part of what you're doing in your strategy and in your plan and in your blog, and like using it, like making it be useful. And what I would do sometimes is say like, okay, Andy Crestadina, who I regard highly when it comes to websites and optimization and content strategy, gives this opinion, but Jill Andrews, copywriter, gives this opinion, which is exactly opposite. So now how do we, in our own business, take opposing points of view and figure out where do we fit in the spectrum? So this is the other thing. There's not, in my opinion, when it comes to content strategy and social media marketing management strategy, there is not one cookie cutter answer. It varies so widely by the customer, their audience, their product service, their industry. There's so many factors besides just you and how you see things that are part of it. If you want to have that bigger community and two-way conversation that you really, really have to try to have.
So true. I used to say this when I was in government contracting, right? It depends, right? There's not a one size fits all, and I mean, it's no different than everyone has different personalities. You can't treat everyone the same way, because the way you treat some people is going to turn other people off. And I think even when you think about your content, how is your content going to attract people, right? Some people, to your point with TikTok, some people like this entertainment, but are they really thinking? Or are they just looking for a space to just like, kind of be mindless and numb? We used to call television, I don't know if they still call it that, like the boob tube, and just kind of just
right.
sitting there.
Couch potato and all that.
Yeah.
Now we're a podcast potato. Maybe we're walking while we're listening.
Right. Well, and I think that's part of the thing. And I think Mark Schaefer even talked about it. It's like, are we turning social posting into entertainment? And is that really what we want to do? Because I think for some of us, the businesses we do, I'm not really trying to be entertaining. I'm trying to connect and teach you in a meaningful way that you're going to make progress in whatever that journey may be that I'm helping you with.
You just can't help it because you work with Chris. You guys are entertaining whether you like it or not.
Right.
I look at it as edutainment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, it was kind of edutainment, but really, I think you're right. That's why I jump right in. Like people are like, you never talk about you and give your spiel like at the beginning, like everybody does, because I don't want. Look, there's too many important topics, and people don't give a crap. They want to get into what can I learn today, right? That's what's more important.
Oh, definitely. I definitely think so. Yeah. So what's your topic going to be next week?
There's some framework stuff we didn't do because the conversation went another way, which I love and I'm cool. So I could do more on, top tips to reimagine and put together that framework. Or I can move into my next thing, which is YouTube a social channel? And if so, how do we go about making YouTube, community oriented, and how do we build an audience and make it part of our social strategy? It may not even just be what we do on the platform, but how we use the platform on other platforms. Or the question of how do we approach each platform? Do we do it like we used to do? Because I repurpose like mad, but now I'm thinking I want to repurpose, but I want to be more clear about content per platform. Like this platform gets a different, instead of just sharing the same thing across platforms like we always did, do we need to be more intentional per platform is one thing I want to explore.
Yeah. I mean, my short answer is I definitely think yes, because I think it tends to make us lazy if we just take one piece of content and basically just slap it on everywhere thinking like, oh, I'll get some likes. And I remember you probably still see it where people will take an Instagram post, share it to Facebook, and they don't adjust the tags, and it looks sloppy.
Well, and that they don't keep the same format. So right. If you want to have it be really done well, it needs to be in the different formats. And maybe the audience is even different. Maybe you want to talk about things a little bit differently on different platforms. Look, we have a conflict with the platforms that we work on and work with, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. But I think that they want to keep us on their platform and go nowhere else, and we want to bring people back to us. So there's that struggle and that conflict at the bottom line of social. So you need to learn how to walk the tightrope to pull people over to your side sometimes and get them into your community or into that deeper relationship with you off of the platform. But to do that, maybe you have to put more into the specific platform itself in a way. Did that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Well, if you guys have something specific that you think should be the next topic, I did have, like a few things in mind. But that's what's funny too, because I had a whole string of, like, I actually did a content strategy for myself, which I know that's more for customers, but I had a content strategy. But each time we talk, because it's interactive and because we are sharing different points of view and we're moving in different directions, we're not necessarily staying on, my exact track, which is good, because, it should be led by you and by, the people who are interested in the same topics. And there are so many directions. So please, if you're listening now, if you're listening on YouTube or on Spotify later, or if you go back to LinkedIn and want to throw it on comments on this event, please do give us some direction. And I'm going to be trying to keep doing this every Wednesday at 2:00 as best I can to be more, consistent with content. I think that's an important thing. Jamie, come on up. She's coming.
There we go.
Hello.
I love the conversation, so I've been following along. I thought it might be a good idea to jump into, based on some of the topics so far. You guys mentioned earlier about specific platforms. Maybe it would be interesting to jump into platform-specific discussions and, the best ways to maximize your presence on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be amazing, because we've talked about different aspects of social media and social media marketing the last few weeks. And I think it would be good to dive into that, because I, for one, would be really interested. To up my game on YouTube. That's something it's on my list, right?
That big long list.
But I think that would be interesting to people, to tackle specific platforms and kind of find people who excel on a specific platform to help us dive deep instead of just skimming the surface.
And I think YouTube might be a good place to start, because that one is maybe the one we're least familiar with as writers and content creators in the space, doing a lot of, we've, all of us on here, I'm not positive, but I feel like you too, Jim, have done a lot of writing and web writing and worked with content strategy and social strategy. And I think YouTube's a great idea as a place to start, because it's the least familiar of all the ones that we can talk about. But I have good research on a lot of these, and I'm always trying to update it. So if it comes up as a topic, it's going to be new compared to what, I talked about a year ago or even a half a year ago on all these platforms, because they're moving so quickly.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the difficult things, is keeping up with them, because they're changing so rapidly. You mentioned Instagram earlier. They've been making massive changes to that platform. I'm always interested to hear the videos that Adam Mosseri, I believe is how you pronounce his name, posts. At least he's interactive and sharing his thoughts on why they're doing what they're doing, which is more than people running other platforms are doing. So it is really challenging to keep up on everything. So I personally would be interested in those topics. I'm sure other people would be as well. And I just wanted to say quickly before I move on here, Jim, I love the idea. I was listening earlier when you were talking about the QR code and your cover photo and in your I jumped over to check out your profile again, like you talked about. You can jump over and check everyone's profile already on the platform here. That's a fantastic idea. So I have that video pulled up to watch it. So good idea there.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you. Yeah, and that wasn't my idea. That was Peter, the founder of Relatables, idea. And it's just because even as another example, I mean, could you imagine if you write a book, whether it's a ebook or a hard copy book, at the end of each chapter you had a QR code that had an interactive video for the reader to engage with you based on what they got out of that chapter, and maybe some of the and just even getting the feedback. I think.
Oh my gosh, you could have a Q&A, like any questions, interaction, even that.
Yeah.
Like
that would be phenomenal. I would love that. As somebody who reads a lot, I would love that.
Another thing that's a good topic is LinkedIn newsletters. I heard, who was it just talking about? Oh, Andy Crestadina just blew my mind with talking about how big a deal those are. And I know you have one. I haven't done it yet. I'm a bad girl. I've done it for clients again. I've set up clients with their LinkedIn newsletter, so I know how to do it. So I think I'm going to finally, I know you've been telling me for a year, Jim, do it, Sue Ann. And I'm thinking, oh no, one more thing I got to do. But then I'm thinking, what am I worried about? I already have so much material. I wouldn't even have to do anything to start sending. That he was saying that Microsoft is actually promoting it. Like they're actually pushing it on LinkedIn, and they talked about it in some kind of meeting or some kind of event they had about the LinkedIn newsletter platform and how big a deal it is. And so they might even help you to push that out. And, he says it's the easiest, frictionless. That was the word I was looking before that created friction. It was the most frictionless way to start introducing an email. And since I'm just starting to build my own, again, built many email lists for clients.
No, I have the same challenge, but I think to your point, because that was one of the things I talked about yesterday was company pages, and I posted a video yesterday kind of showing some of the benefits and features of that is, once you get to 150 followers, you can have a company page newsletter. And so as an example, being a member of the American Legion, I built our company page and we've got, over 200 followers. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe now I create a newsletter that allows us to inform people about not just what's going on at our post, but also things going on in the veteran space, right? And so then we become a resource through our newsletter. And of course, the beauty is if you subscribe to a newsletter, LinkedIn emails it to these people. So it's not like I have to say, hey, Sue Ann, I need your email so I can send you this newsletter. So it's definitely creates less friction. And, it was really neat. And this I know is completely sidetracked. So last night we went to the Braves game. They were playing the Phillies, and they have this like hometown hero thing during the game. They brought out this gentleman who was at the Battle of the Bulge in 1945. He was a corporal in the Army, so you can imagine how old he is. And he walked out, shuffled out there, and he had his little baseball cap on that said he was a World War II vet. And he got a standing ovation. And I mean, even the players in the dugouts were clapping. I mean, it was just really a moving moment because we just don't have a lot of those folks, around anymore. So that was really cool.
I love that. I want to thank you for joining today in the conversation. I want to thank Jamie, Lisa, and Gail for participating and for being part of my gang. I think we all offer each other support, which is, I think, a great thing. When I'm struggling with social, I can call Lisa on the phone or Gail on the phone or Jamie on the phone for that matter and say, hey, girl, what do you think? What's going on? What's your opinion? And, we all learn from each other. And that's another reason why I'm so excited about doing these interactive events on LinkedIn right now. And hopefully it'll keep growing and more people will understand how much fun and interaction that it can be, and also how much we learn from each other. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Jamie, do you have anything to close?
No, I'm all set. I've really been enjoying these and looking forward to future conversations.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Jim. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Gail, and anyone else that hears this. Like I said, you can comment now. You can leave questions. Everybody here is, I know, open to answering and helping anyone with anything they might be wondering about digital. And Jim's got a new mic he's talking about, which might be fun for us with the Shure mic. So we have good audio. Thanks again. Take care.